Hey, everybody. I think we're live. I think I did this right. So I see Tessa. Hey, Tessa. Hi, Connie. Hey, Joe. Hi, Ron. And if there's anybody else lurking I didn't shout out, hey, thanks for joining us. So this was just a topic that came out of a Bush telegraph with pure synchronicity. It was one of those moments where I literally was at the coffee maker starting my day, and it's like I wonder what Luna's doing. And I picked up my device, and there was a message, and I was actually kind of thinking superheroes, and the message that Luna had sent was superheroes. So it was just meant to be. And then throughout the course of the week, things just kind of unfolded, and Luna's been busy, I've been busy, and Sharon's been busy. So we all have just been kind of doing our thing, but coming together and having a nice yarn off camera about superheroes. And I think we all have a pretty unique view on superheroes, but collectively it's universal. So again, thanks everybody for coming out. So thank you for joining us, Nanogirl and Luna. I'm sorry, it's Super Mom tonight.
Yeah, I'm super mum today.
Yeah, and
Da-da-da.
we are kind of dressing up because it is so close to Halloween.
Yeah, we are. And I don't know what I am, but I just dressed up. And as you guys know, I moved. And the one thing we have plenty of here, oh, thank you, Jessica.
Aw.
And big hugs to all of you that have showed up, Tessa, Connie, Joe, and more Ron. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Yeah,
We have all those antique stores and consignment stores. It's pretty much all we have. And so once we said we were going to do superheroes, I thought I'm going to go get a costume because I want to have as much fun as I can right now. So I actually found this in like 5 minutes. Like this was sitting next to the dress, and I'm like, all right, I'm getting it. And the dress fits perfect. I'm 5'2". A dress never fits perfect. So anyway, here we
like
are.
saying, you're allowed to wear anything these days.
Well, I wouldn't put anybody through that.
You can walk down the street, everyone will just go. That's actually people go. Can I take a photo of you? That's what happens now. It's not like in the old days where they look at it and go, "Where did they do? Did they just get out of the nut?" Yeah, and I never hardly ever wear t-shirts, but I have my super mum t-shirt.
It actually looks. I think it looks really good on you, Luna. It's a really good look on you. It's a good color too.
And the cape helps you fly. I figured out what the cape was about. It's you know when a cat's tail and that helps them maneuver. That's what I think the cape is. It just helps you maneuver around a little bit.
Yeah, so it's balance for flying in the air.
Aerodynamics.
I love it.
And good day everyone, chat room, and good to see you, Ron. I can't chat at the moment. I'm trying to figure out how to get my screen so I can see the chat. Technology. See that I should have been super techno hero, but I wish I was. So
yeah, mine was total. Had such a busy week, just kind of last minute, and I actually ran out of aluminum foil in the process, so it's only half a hat. And so, since it is Halloween and everything, I'm gonna go with my favorite tried and true hat.
Oh yeah,
Love it.
Arrgh.
well, I did want to ask you, Jules, when you had your foil hat on, did you notice anything different? Did it seem quieter in your
Yeah.
head?
Did you have less yucky vibrations on your head when you had the aluminum on?
Well, I mean, I looking back on it, I would say yes, and but I wonder if that's because I'm in a positive frame of mind, and what those thoughts that I were thinking are staying with me; they're not escaping.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone, try it
But then
out.
again, it was only half a hat, and
Yeah.
to truly wear a tinfoil hat, it has to like literally cover some of your neck and your ears.
That's so true. It has to cover the back of your neck here because you've got an opening in the back of your head here.
Mm.
It's a in and out opening of energy, and you have to cover that, and it has to come down to here as well. So it virtually has to come into a V and come round and then go into a V at the back. How do I know? Because in private, I tried it out.
One of the ladies I met here is a seamstress, and she has put the lead lining in her husband's baseball caps. She makes lead lining coin purses for everybody's credit cards and things like that. She makes them pretty good size. Yeah. And she said she notices a difference in her husband if he wears the lead lining.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah, so it's not a joke. Yeah. Because he's like us. He does a lot of research all the time. He knows what's going on. And I think we need as much protection as we get if we're diving into the silliness that's going on. Speaking of that, I had this weird dream, and right at the end, when you're waking up, you're going from the dream and you're in the middle and you're coming awake. And there was a guy in the dream, and he looked like Klaus Schwab. And he said, he wanted me to keep working for him. And I said, no, I already dedicated my life to you before, and I'm not going to do it again. It was a burnout. And I said, I'm not going to do it. And he said, well, what about halftime? And I said, no, I'm not going to do it at all. I woke up like, no. And I kind of wonder if they're coming to us in our dreams. Like, I know people have said that, right? It's like in our unconscious time, like they're like trying to pull us back in. Do you want to work for us? No, I don't.
Yeah, they always tap on and go, you sure you don't want to work for us?
How about halftime? How about some of the time? How about none of the time?
And we got Nese.
Nese is joining us.
Hey, Nese. Oh, and hi,
hello,
Polly.
and hi. It is such a pleasure and an honor to be basking in the brilliant illumination as the miraculous perfection of unique individual known as Nanogirl.
Oh my God, I can't live up to that. Thank you.
We're not worthy.
I know. I'm not worthy. But thank you, Nese. How have you been?
I am as fantastic as the universe allows. I'm excited on this Halloween Sallow weekend. I am bringing my youngest daughter and her friends to the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Right.
And
very fun.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. So I apologize. I'll have to dip out around 9:30, quarter to 10. But it's great to hear your voice, Nano. So, yay.
Yeah, I think the last time when we did the pirate show, I think we mentioned it was a good time to circle back. Like we kind of needed to step away after the captain left the ship, and we all needed to kind of go away and come back. I know you have all kind of hung together, but I really needed to kind of, book it a little bit and then to come back and circle around. And I feel like so much better. And also I'm living in a different place, in a different house, and doing different things. So that has really helped. And I feel like this last 4 or 5 months has been pretty healing from, all the nonsense. So I hope that we can continue in this crazy stuff, just keep healing relationships and doing healing in here and stuff like that. So
absolutely, and sharing the giggles. But if I may add a little bit to what you guys were just currently talking to, if you remember the movie with Tom Cruise called Minority Report.
Oh yes.
During the movie there was a part. Now this is the theatrical version, because I was there with my younger brother. He brought me to the movie. So in the scene, and this is a spoiler, but it's an old movie, after he had his eyes replaced, they had these little spy devices that were like spiders in a sense, and they would come and check everybody's eyes. They would do like an optical scan. Yeah. Now, when he ran, he was running through these old buildings, and they showed this scene where they had a van that had this big, huge, like solar dish on the top of it, like a satellite dish, and it was directed at the building. and they could see the thermal imaging of Tom Cruise running through the building. And then there was a part when all of a sudden it got all staticky and they couldn't see his image anymore. And the commander yelled at the operator, "What's going on? Why can't we see him?" And the operator turns to the screen, all in full huge THX sound, and I almost lost it. The operator said, "Well, we can't see him because he's probably in a building that still has lead paint."
Right.
And I almost lost it because I was always squawking because of my background as military in the Navy. I was a radioman. So it was shipboard communication, which is basic electromagnetic wave promulgation of transmitting and receiving. And so we knew that there were certain things that would disrupt the frequency wave in its direction. And what was the one thing that the ultimate old school superhero, Superman, could not see through was lead.
Right. And he was weak to kryptonite.
Yes. And then on top of that, with the aluminum foil and the tin foil, that one of the biggest reasons why they called it a tin foil hat was because if you are looking to disrupt electromagnetic wave frequency, then you need to use tin because it's of different elements than aluminum is. And so if you really want a disruption, you need, like you were saying, your friend that made the lead lining, which I strongly suggest, or getting the old tin foil. But the aluminum foil has a minimal potential of disruption as the tin foil does.
Well, also when you think about it, the people who they coin tinfoil, right? Your tinfoil hat, we are the disruptors. So we are that word, those words. We are the disruptors. We are the people that are throwing the monkey wrenches in their little, in the rollout.
Mm-hmm.
And
all we're doing is analyzing.
We're not giving our energy to it. I got to throw this out there. I don't know if anybody have seen the new Amazon series, Peripheral. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen anything.
I'm sorry. Have you listened? Have you listened to it? I'm sorry. Have you listened and heard? I'm sorry, Nese. Thank you for correcting me. But this is about VR. And it's so real. I only lasted a half of the first session. It was like, okay, I got to turn this off because it was too real. But this is what I think is really happening on some level. If you get a chance to see it, that's how real it is. This is our good friend Zuckerbot on steroids. I just want to throw that out there. Anyway, so.
Yeah, so I confess, I of everybody here tonight, I am probably the one who has the least knowledge of superheroes that are Marvel or DC or in popular culture, popular media these days. I mean, growing up, they weren't something that I always gravitated to. But and I can't think like the popular characters like Batman and Superman. The popular ones, just like I always go back to V. They keep remaking the same ones. The story's been done over again. How many versions of a story are there? Is this like every movie you make? Is it like those old books where you choose your own ending, where you go to this page if you want to continue this story, or flip to this page if you want to pick up somewhere else?
Yeah, I think that's why one of the things I read when I did some research is that's why superheroes have lasted so long, is you can change them with the times. Like we were talking about Superman. So I used to buy Superman comics when I was 11 and 12. Like every week I'd go get my Superman comic. I loved Superman, and Jimmy Olsen, and Perry White, I think, was the
Mhm.
editor of the newspaper, and then Lois Lane. And so Lois Lane was this like unrequited love with Superman, and Clark Kent was his, his pretend, his persona that he pretended to be when he was a Superman and all that kind of stuff. And it was always about hiding his identity and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that I really loved about that time zone, that was early 60s, is Superman was a good guy, a decent
Mhm.
person, and now you've got all these different versions of everything. And Superman can get violent, and Superman can be all these really dark things. Jimmy Olsen, who was kind of a comic relief character, isn't there. Lois looks very different than Lois used to look, and Perry White isn't usually even in the show anymore. And so if we look at just the growth or the change of Superman, and then like you said, how many versions? Well, Batman, how many versions of Batman?
Mhm.
Right? And each one has brought in the time, the what was the angst of the time, or what was happening in the time when they bring them back, like especially in the movies, right? And we started out with, was it Michael Keaton was the first Batman that
Yeah, that was. Wasn't that Tim Burton that did Batman
I
1989?
think he did do some of the Batmans. I don't remember who did all the producing. But we had him. We had Val Kilmer, was one of my favorites. Of course, I love Val Kilmer. Eric, is it Eric Bana? Is that his name? The guy, do I have that right? He was one of them, I think. Anyway, I don't know if I got that name right, but
Yeah, I mean there was the pen that was Iceman.
and then you have Patterson. The latest one is Patterson from Harry Potter fame, and I haven't watched it because I don't see him as Batman. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't see you as Batman.
Yeah, I can totally follow your logic there. He made a much better vampire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. And sometimes typecasting does not do you any favors. But he was great in Twilight. Like, I loved all those. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nese.
I do have a question for you, though, Nano. Your comic books, when you purchased them, do you remember how much they cost?
10 cents.
Right?
And that's how old I am, by the way. That's part of that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I remember when I started purchasing them, they were a quarter.
Yeah.
Or 35 cents. And we used to road trip it from the Twin Cities of Minnesota up north to my grandparents, and we would stop in Hinckley, this Hinckley little truck stop, diner, cafe, and they would have a bag of comic books where you would get 5 comic books for $1. And my dad would each give me and my brother $2, and then we'd go and get our comic books. However, my question to everybody, who would you say was the first written superhero?
It wasn't
The Phantom.
Was it the Phantom?
That's the one of the oldest modern day superheroes.
They
But
had Green
yeah,
Hornet.
probably those were the days. Richard Pryor being a Superman movie.
Superman 3.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Now, going back to the Green Hornet, wasn't the Green Hornet on the radio show as well as the Phantom, right? They were on the old radio shows. I think the Phantom, Phantom knows. And yeah.
Well, I think it was a little bit of a trick question, but Luna, you're going to weigh in on that?
I think
she's probably going to say something like Crocodile Dundee.
No, I'm going to go up. Jesus was the first superhero.
Ooh, now you're thinking.
Who was?
Jesus. Or
that's
Yeshua, whatever you want to call him, he was the first superhero. Well known.
That is where I was kind of pulling a trick question there, because if we look historically when it comes down to a written work, one of the oldest known is called the Epic of Gilgamesh. And Gilgamesh was this entity that went through the trials and tribulations of the 7 base storylines that are possible, yet now they are weaved, all 7 basic storylines are weaved in and out of each other, so they make them more complex. But yeah, the Epic of Gilgamesh, but then we could maybe think like Enki and Ili of Mesopotamia, and then maybe of Egypt, the gods. I think technically would be argued that they were superheroes of back in the day.
What about Moses, Ben-Hur, David and Goliath? David was a superhero standing up to Goliath, right? Hercules. And
Yep.
so are you saying that maybe the other first superheroes are the ones that were up in the sky, like Zeus and Athena and all of those characters, correct? Thor?
Well, if we look at the storyline, I guess, of superheroes, it was an entity that went through trials and tribulations, and through those challenges, they taught us a lesson. They gave us some social standards of like common decency and heroics.
Exactly. Right.
And so even the Anishinaabe, we have 2 characters. Well, some people claim it's 1 character, but I believe it's 2 characters, Wenebuju and Nanabuju. And these 2 individuals were like a hero architect because of their stories that they did.
Yeah. Interesting that you would talk about the ancients, because I did find an article, and it wasn't just those from throughout other cultures, the Celts and the whole legend of the giant that made the bridge in Ireland. He's on the tip of my tongue, but I'm forgetting. But that was another one that they considered a superhero because he had those powers. And Prometheus, his superpower, he gave fire to mankind. I mean, again, like I'm saying, I confess I don't know a lot of, but even ancient, it was Finn McCool, and then other superheroes for as long as stories before writing and across every culture from which we can find evidence. Finn McCool built the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, and Gilgamesh defeated Humba in Mesopotamia. Rama was exiled from and I'm totally butchering this, Ayodhya in India, while Beowulf slew Grendel and Grendel's mother in Scandinavia. So tales of superheroes have been around forever. I mean, it's tying back into those other yarns we've had about missing history and mystery history and things that we're uncovering that should have never been covered up. And I'm taking us off topic, but it just seems like every era, every superhero is there to give people something to believe in.
Something greater than yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't really hear those words anymore. One person makes a difference as much as I used to. Something greater than yourself. I used to hear that a lot more in the 80s and the 70s more than I hear it now. I don't hear that. I don't hear people at work necessarily look at one person that they can stand out like that. right? It's a team, it's a collaboration more than a person. Although they acknowledge everybody's work, you know, they do a lot of that. But I don't hear the words. It's kind of weird. You know what I mean? It's subtle, but I don't, because that was a big thing when I first started working in the 70s, is you can make a difference. You know, one person makes a difference, like Steve Jobs. You can be like a Steve Jobs, or, you know, somebody like that. So do we define superhero as you don't have to be able to fly or, you know, carry a hammer like Thor, but you can face a huge hill or something, you know, or a foe or an enemy, and you have courage.
Yes.
And you go beyond the common person's courage.
I say yes on that, because we've had previous yarns. It's getting through difficult times and tough situations. You battle through it, but you're not carrying a little sword or anything, but you are, especially the way things have kind of shifted. We're all warriors. We're putting on our spiritual armor. That's our weapon, but it's just we just want to put one foot forward and keep going.
Right. And I think so. Maybe the words that we would use for our past heroes is courage, facing an enemy that seems bigger than ourselves, but not being cowed by it. We just keep, like you said, we just keep putting one foot in front of the other and not quitting. And I think that's the big one. Don't quit. Just don't quit. And one of the statements I always heard at work that I always loved was 50% of anything is just showing up. You know, you're halfway there. You just show up. Just show up. And sometimes on my tiredest days, it's like I think to myself, just show up. 50% of it. Right? And it's in a way, it's free. All you have to do is show up.
I mean, and to add on to that, when I have those days and I find myself at the gym and it's like you showed up, do something. Whether it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, you're here, do something.
Yes, I would agree on that too. That's the next step. Do something. Even if it's just, I don't know, saying thank you or being grateful or whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
True.
And, you know, going back to our Marvel superheroes, you know, the kind in the comics, I was thinking to myself, did I like the kind of heroes that could fly and had special powers, or did I appreciate the heroes that didn't have the superpowers? I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, I felt like Superman had to hide out a lot because he wanted to keep his identity secret. But if I look at Daredevil, if I look at Batman, who's always had to deal with his darkness, his dark side, and he doesn't have superpowers. He's just a very athletic being.
And rich.
I'm sorry, what?
And rich. Filthy rich.
Well, yeah, understood, but still, he didn't need to go out and do what he did. He could just live off his money and not do that. I mean, I think the thing that I like about Batman is he struggled with his demons, and he had a lot of them. You know, he was always that was almost the bigger foe in his life than the physical foe. Was his demons, his own personal demons.
How many, like I was thinking earlier exactly that, Nanogirl, like I was looking at all the superheroes and I thought of Batman and thought, hang on, you're the only one without superpowers. How many are without superpowers? Like he's the only iconic one. Everyone else has some form of superpower or mutation or something, you know what I mean?
Daredevil doesn't have superpowers either.
Well, there you go, Daredevil.
Yeah, there's a few.
And what I wanted to mention too is that the heroes from when we were young to the heroes now, there's hundreds and hundreds more. But I noticed of lately there's a bit of a blur between actual good superhero, because I was thinking of some of the ones I saw and I thought, are they actually good? You know what I mean? You touched on it before, Nanogirl. You touched on it before and I thought, I thought about that. There's one, I can't remember the name of the show, you know, the oily liquid thing that goes into the guy's body and takes him over?
Venom.
Venom, yeah. Like Venom, like is he actually, you know how the lines blur because he goes out and eats the bad guys?
Yeah.
But is he actually a superhero, like compared to what we were used to as a superhero when we were young, and how it's changed, and it's a bit blurry now, you know?
I think it's very blurry. I think, well, Doctor Strange is another person. He's got a magic cape, right? He's got that magic cape that can do things. He's not a superhero. I mean, he acts like a superhero, but it's because of his cape, right?
Yeah.
But he has to fight with his own darkness as well. I mean, he's got a horrible ego problem. That was his whole thing. He crushed his hands in a car accident when he was a famous surgeon, and he was Mr. Arrogant Ego. And that's how he got into the mess he got into. And then he had to go to wherever they go in the mountains to become better people, or train or whatever it is. And then the cape found him. He's very funny. So the guy Cumberbatch that plays him does a great job, and he makes it funny. But another person that's dealing with his own ego and his own self-destruction. So yeah, some of the heroes are not fun to watch, right?
Yeah, I noticed
Well,
that.
it's almost.
Pardon me?
I was just going to say that all of them have to deal with their own stuff, no matter how powerful they are. They all got their own stuff to deal with.
Yes, I think so. I don't know of any hero that doesn't. I think, like if you look at Batgirl or any of the offshoots or, yeah. Go ahead, Nese.
It's like that cliche about looking into the abyss. And, and this is even a challenge if we look at modern day heroes like the police and the firemen, and like the emergency response individuals, that when you are battling negativity and you're finding yourself deep into negativity, then I can imagine that vigilante behavior to rise up, because if you're trying to right a wrong and because of the system you can't right that wrong, then these individuals more or less take it upon their own accord to do what they're doing, because a lot of them could be considered vigilantes because they're going above and beyond the law and doing it their way. And their way is utilizing their superpowers or all their gizmos and gadgets and physical abilities.
Because there's another show on, is it Netflix or Amazon? I think it is called Superheroes, but they're all dark. They're not
The Boys.
Yeah, the boys. Thank you. And they all have superpowers based on this stuff they drank or got sprayed on them or whatever it was. And one of them is a complete and total sociopath. He has done so many evil things to everybody, and he's and I can't watch the show. I have a limit to that stuff. He is just that dark, and I like the actors that are playing the part, but it's at this point it's like, okay, I can't watch the sadistic. It's sadistic. It's just so sadistic. And
it's almost like Hollywood, but with superheroes.
Right. And so basically what they've done is they're so cynical, and they've taken advantage of what they can do, and they expect to be adored, and it's all this marketing and selling of who they are and money, and they're so corrupted. So
just the first 5 minutes of the series is just enough to just knock you off your seat. And I've only listened to them because it does have audio description, and this is a spoiler.
Yeah.
In the first 5 minutes, they show a man and this couple, and they're in love and talking, and the girl steps off the sidewalk, and all of a sudden bursts into particles of herself, because a super fast individual was running and slammed into her and just blew her apart into pieces.
Yep. Yep. And
And
that's
he gets away with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he sure does.
They have a team that like covers it up in the media, and these superheroes, this is what they do. It's like the Hollywood when they get involved with their debauchery and they break the laws, and they have, you know, publicists and managers that make things right again.
That's exactly what that show's about. Absolutely. Yep. And that's how one of the people, the human person, gets involved, because that was his girlfriend or his fiance or whatever it was that gets annihilated, and the guy doesn't even care. The superhero person's like, well, you know, hey, she was in the way. What? Yeah.
And spoiler, Nano, that individual in the end, he starts taking the serum.
Yeah,
So it's that same thing.
6 episodes, and then I thought, okay, this is just too yucky for me. Because again, I love Marvel stuff. You know, I think Disney has done a pretty good job. I know people bash Disney all the time, but they've done a pretty good job with some of their Marvel stuff, and they bought it all.
Well, if you look at the full spectrum, and if you think of Disney being wholesome,
no, I
The
don't.
Boys is on the opposite of what Disney puts out there, because it is horrifying debauchery, and it is twisted.
That's a good word. It's very, very twisted. Yes. And I was trying to think of what's the name of the one where the woman is kind of a dark character. She's full of electricity or something, and she creates that pretend world. And then pretty soon it starts.
Oh, Scarlet Witch.
No, there's another one. I can't remember the name of it, but she, anyway, yeah.
Well, she turns into the Scarlet Witch.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, geez, what's her name?
I know. I want to say Donna, but that's not her name. Yeah.
Are you talking about in the X-Men? Because there was
no
Jean Grey turned into the Phoenix.
It starts out in a 50s sitcom, and it's like, whoa, this is interesting, right? It turns out in the 50s sitcom, and then all of a sudden, all of that falls away. All that, because it was something she created, that reality. She created the whole town. She just takes over the whole town and makes it a simulation kind of thing. And everybody in the town is stuck there. And then she's got them all not mesmerized, but she's programmed them to be what she wants them to be in this town. Sound familiar?
Yeah, I think she turned into the Scarlet Witch, but I can't remember.
She did turn into a witch, right?
What she was called prior to that.
But I think you're right. I think she might have come from the X-Men, and she was a bad person there. But then Disney gave her her own little series that she did, which was kind of fascinating, creating that town, that pretend town. You know, we have a lot of themes like that out there right now. That VR, right? We got the robot ones and Westworld, that kind of thing.
God, Westworld, that's for hours on that.
Here's something. I was thinking about superheroes and all that, and then I thought, hang on, what about the animals? And I'm thinking about what animals are superheroes. Does anyone remember Mighty Mouse?
Yes, I love Mighty Mouse.
Remember Mighty
Mouse?
Mouse?
I come to save the day.
Yes, that's it.
I mean, what other animal superheroes were there?
Didn't they have Ant? Something Adam Ant, right? Yes.
There wasn't
in the secret compartment of my ring, I filled with a super underdog energy pill.
Oh yes, never fear. Underdog is here.
Underdog, yeah, Underdog's another one.
Yes. And what about Sherman? And what's his face that would take Sherman to the past? Would try
Sherman and Peabody.
That was kind of a hero. And Rocky and Bullwinkle were kind of a hero because they were always fighting Boris and Natasha.
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. That trick never works. This time for sure.
That was one of my. I think that was one of my all-time favorite cartoons ever. Was Rocky and Bullwinkle. Absolutely.
Saturday morning cartoons.
Yes. Do you remember Sky Masters? Was it? And he was a regular human, but he could fly. He had the Cessnas and the planes, and he flew everywhere.
That one I'm not recalling.
Yeah.
But you individuals on the West Coast had a greater selection than we did in the Mid-America.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. There was a whole, like, Saturday morning was like this whole lineup, right?
It was that way for us 70s and early 80s kids too.
It was the same year in Australia.
These were decent cartoons. Then you had Bugs Bunny, you had Hanna-Barbera, Yogi Bear, Boo Boo, yeah, and Snagglepuss. Exit stage right.
The Laugh Olympic. The Laugh Olympics.
The Laugh Olympics.
Yes. Yes.
And then Speed Buggy.
Yes.
Captain Caveman and then the Teen Angels. Josie and the Pussycats.
That was a little bit more.
Yeah.
But we had Mickey Mouse Club, but that wasn't on Saturday and Sunday, right? This was just the cartoons.
That was regular programming. That wasn't weekend programming.
Right. No, that was during the week. Yeah.
Actually,
well, then there was those cartoons before school started and right after school.
Yes.
There was like a block of cartoons to entertain us till the parents came home from work.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Interesting how inclusive.
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
I was just going to say, interesting how influential all of this television programming is.
Yeah, but it was pretty decent back in the day. I mean, I'm sure they slipped in a bunch of crap, but still, you didn't walk away feeling like you needed a shower or another bath.
True.
You could watch it. I used to make like 17,000 pieces of cinnamon toast. I was sugar hound back then. And remember cinnamon toast? You just take butter and cinnamon and toast your bread as if we needed more sugar on the bread. But it was one of my favorite things to do on a Saturday. My parents would let me eat cinnamon toast and just lay in front of the TV for like 3 or 4 hours every Saturday morning. It was just like a ritual. It was so great. And I think the cartoons now for kids, first of all, I don't understand them. And second of all, to me, they're horrifying. It's like, oh my God, you let your kid watch that.
Yeah, I don't watch many modern cartoons. The animation doesn't appeal to me. I liked old school art animation where there were colors, where there were lines, and the computer generated animation. I get it; it saves a lot, but you get it out faster. But it just lacks that elegance and that beauty and that sophistication of something classic.
Yeah. Well, there's a big difference between, okay, we'll go back to Disney again, between the early Cinderella and the other sort of princessy stuff, their animation stuff, and then later. And then later, like it just seems like there was different iterations of it. And I think in the beginning, they really thought out the characters. And I think Cinderella was just a classic. You had the cool mice. You had the cat, the black cat was called Lucifer, who ends up being pushed out the window. I mean, it was just amazing. It was adorable. It was really adorable.
Well, as much as the characters, it was the way they did their ink and their paint. They were the pioneers of animation, and they used to hand paint all of those backgrounds, meticulously hand paint with all those colors. Right. And that's where I think I get my pull towards classic animation in that style, because that was little work. It's you'd put time and effort and you made sure everything was going according with the flow of your coworkers beside you. But with the computer generated one, you get it out faster. But I feel like when I watch modern animation, there's something that's lost along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the sense of feeling, the sense of actually putting in a lot of time into the characters. I mean, think about the time they put into the mice. I mean, every time I watch Cinderella, I think, who decided to call that black cat Lucifer? I mean, who calls their cat Lucifer back then, right? And he was a Lucifer. And then you had Gus. Gus was the cute little chubby mouse, and I mean, just these amazing little characters, and then the fairy godmother and Cinderella herself and the sisters, Cruella, well, not Cruella, but whatever they were. Oh my God, they were horrible. Anastasia and whatever, and the horrible stepmother. And the voices. I mean, that's another thing, is the time they put into the voices and the singing. It was just amazing to me. Jules, I think you froze.
I would recommend, if you can find it, there's this documentary out there. It's called The World According to Disney. And it goes into the implications of the social conditioning that was pushed through the television, through media, through entertainment. And in a sense, it's understandable with the things that we've talked throughout the years, that the powers that should not be will take the opportunity to push their agenda any way they can. And if we can indoctrinate, and this is where I think they realized how easy it was to indoctrinate the individuals through television. And let's start them early. And this is when all of a sudden there was this change in cartoons. And I would say around the time of the 90s, when they came out with like Ren and Stimpy,
Yep.
and Pee Wee Herman.
Remember Beavis and Butthead? Yep.
Yeah, and it was like all of a sudden cartoons were really becoming subversively adult cartoons. Yet they were kind of in this kind of, in comedy they call it lowbrow humor.
Yeah.
And that was, kind of for the children. And when Pee Wee Herman came out, which I would look at him as a superhero, because I was much older. I was 23, and I used to remember me and my girlfriend at the time, we would wake up and make a big deal of breakfast and get in front of the TV and smoke a J and laugh, because here this individual is making the world scream just because of a word. And I imagine what it would be like in the schools when on Monday, when the secret word is like umbrella, and it's said at the school, and next thing you know, you get 10, 20 kids all of a sudden, that, as much as it was disruptive, I have to tip my hat that it was brilliant.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I love Pee Wee Herman, and I actually thought Pee Wee was a decent character. I mean, he did a really great job of being childlike and playful, and everybody that showed up at his playhouse was pretty decent. They were decent characters. They weren't mean. They weren't, other than there was a couple of them. I think he did have one or two, but that was their job, to be mean, right? But for the most part, everybody was pretty cool, and that was refreshing to see that. But somebody in chat, who asked the question? I think Polynation. Does anyone know how Disney used to treat hire their animators? I have heard not so great. I heard that he was a stickler. He was a control freak. Everybody had a certain code of behavior around him. Not that he necessarily obeyed it. And I think there's a lot of people that have done some research on Disney. Disney was a very interesting guy. Very interesting.
Well, if you were tight within the club, you would go out to the Magic Kingdom and they would have mushroom parties.
Ooh. Back
And,
then?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. The animators have discussed it several times about how they used to do hallucinogenics. I mean, just look at Fantasia.
Yes.
You know, Fantasia is kind of like a wow. And to Walt Disney, if you look at him historically, just looking at the whole thing of where Mickey Mouse was basically plagiarism from Steamboat Willie.
Right.
Now, the family of the creators of Steamboat Willie, they were attempting to sue Disney for years. And I think this lawsuit went on for like 60 years. And it was tied up in the court system.
It was
And finally,
based off of a character called Oswald the Rabbit.
Are you talking about Steamboat Willie?
Did they ultimately win, or did it just die?
Yes.
Well, they settled.
Okay.
They settled with Disney, and the part that bothered me the most about it is the minute that they settled with the family of Steamboat Willie, all of a sudden the next 3 years of Disney movies, they actually put that old cartoon of Steamboat Willie, where he's, up there at the captain's wheel and guiding the little boat and whistling.
I remember.
So it almost was like a big slap in the face, just saying, "Well, ultimately we won."
Yeah.
And then also Walt Disney was a propaganda artist for World War II.
Yep, the military. Right? Didn't he do things for the military? Which is World War II, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, did animation shorts war era where Donald the Duck had those military cartoons?
Yeah. Yes. I think you're right. And his characters were interesting, right? You had
did they call them recruitment films? Like every certain point of time, the military has like a recruitment film. Like in the 80s, it was Top Gun, and then
it was like selling bonds. They would raise money too, right? They would sell bonds.
I think so. I'd have to look more into that.
Yeah, because some of those stars would go out and ask people to buy bonds to help pay for the war. It's unbelievable. But anyway, yeah, that was.
I mean, nowadays they just take our tax-paying money.
It would be really interesting to have talked to the people in that time zone and in this time zone. Like if we could transport 100 of those people, like people all over our country, it's like, did you really give up your gold? Did you really believe the propaganda? Did you really want to go in the war? Did you feel like this was really worth it? Did you think this was our war? Or are we just getting this regurgitated crap that they rewrote? So we all think that's how it went. My guess is people like us were out there then too. I think we've always been there. Some version of us has always been there. Right? So, and continuing with our hero series, the other thing I was thinking about is some of my heroes were also Western heroes, right? We'd out the OK Corral and the sheriff and taking on, the bad guys and cleaning out the bad guys and et cetera, et cetera. And you started out with kind of a Gary Cooper, and then you ended up with Clint Eastwood. Pretty violent, right? And then you go into space, and then you have Star Wars and Star Trek and all that stuff. And then
was Buck Rogers one of the first space heroes?
What? Say that again.
was it was Buck Rogers before Star Trek and Star Wars?
Flash
or
Gordon.
Flash Gordon. Was he first?
Yeah, I think it was Flash Gordon and then Buck Rogers.
Buck Rogers.
But that was more television also.
I never got into Flash Gordon, but I love Buck Rogers. I love Buck Rogers. That was great. And and I think Star Wars kind of really kicked it off. But Star Trek too. I mean, I loved all the Star Treks, all of them, starting with
Yeah,
Kirk.
my internet dropped, and I have no idea why my internet went out. So I feel like I'm missing something, but I don't know what it was. But I'm back. I guess I wasn't meant to hear whatever you guys were talking about.
Well, in Australia, I think they had like Wombat Woman and Keegan the Kangaroo.
Yes. Remember
And
Sheila of the Jungle, or wasn't it Sheila of the Jungle or something?
Skippy. We actually had Skippy, like as kids growing up, there was a show called Skippy the Bush Kangaroo, right? And it was about a family that lived near the bush, and the dad was a park ranger, and he had a daughter and a son, and the son was about, how old was he? I don't know, 10, 11. Anyway, he met this kangaroo. His name was Skippy. And he was like a superhero, and all these adventures would happen. And he'd call him, he'd get a gum leaf and go, what was the call? Something like that. And he'd blow on this gum leaf thing and it would whistle, and Skippy would come along and save the day. So we actually had a kangaroo as a real life superhero. And his name was Skippy. And I think actually Skippy was a girl. But in the show, he was a boy. No, she was a boy. We didn't have much, honestly. We had all the stuff that you had, but yeah, that's all we had. We didn't have our own. Until now, can I have a whinge about thylacine?
I remember, I mean, they were gone decades ago, but I remember when Underoos came out. I had the Wonder Woman Underoos. And oddly enough, now because there's such a following for superheroes and comics, they still make adult Underoos.
Wow.
Well, we do have a character, an anime character, to keep up with everything else, and her name's Thylacine, and she's an Aboriginal superhero. But looking at all the other superheroes, she's underrated because she's very plain. I was having a whinge about it earlier to Sharon and Jules, how disappointed I was as a superhero character that she has no tribal markings, no paint, no anything, and she's just got a staff, and her clothes is just like tights with a little whole bodysuit with a little jacket, and it's nothing like our culture at all for what we would present as a superhero. I was really disappointed, in other words. But I'm happy that we have an Aboriginal superhero, and it's a female, so we're at the bottom.
She is barefoot. She is barefoot.
That's right.
She does have a staff.
Yes.
So there's a few things.
Barefoot, that's an advantage. I mean, without no shoes, you're all grounding.
True. Yes. And that's where the connection comes in, probably. That's part of the superpower.
That would be a good superpower to have.
In our culture, we do have stories where there are kind of heroes in the story where one of the men or women jump up and do the right thing and save everything. They're our kind of superheroes. But I keep telling the young ones here, because you know how nowadays you've got the computerized drawing pads and that, and they can draw anime. I'm telling them all, do some Aboriginal superheroes, because we've only got her. And we could make some really, really good ones, because we know what we're talking about. It's our culture. But none of them are interested. I don't know. That's influence from other countries, I suppose. But you never know.
Before I take off, here's going to be my challenge, and I'd like to give you guys some time to think about it. But your origin story of your specifically based on you superhero.
Oh, you mean the one that we like the best? What's the origin?
Know that you, Nano Girl, the superhero, what is your origin story and your superpowers?
Oh, okay. I go. So before you go, you tell us yours.
Okay, so my origin story is based on, you share what you know. So it's based on an individual that's in my situation as a Paleo American descendant, that because I utilize colloidal silver to the extreme, on the reservation, I am doing ceremony and ritual, and a strange anomaly of a thundercloud comes in and it strikes me, the lightning. And from the lightning strike, all of a sudden it raises me into the air and turns my whole body silver. And then it slams me back into my chair. And at any point of when I go to save the day, I can turn into any animal or bird, kind of like the Native American aspect, but it's almost made fully out of like liquid silver, kind of like in the Terminator, that I could metamorphosize or shapeshift into any animal or creature, but it's out of like solid silver.
So is
I've
this
thought about this.
is this
I
about
was
you
gonna
or
say, it's like, dang, it's like, have you thought about this, or it's just
yeah?
like,
So is it? I got confused. Is this you, the superhero, or you, if you wanted to be a superhero, this is what it would be?
Well, I I make up stories for my kids all the time.
Okay,
And so this was one of the stories I was working on for my children.
got it.
And so it was, the origin story is based on me in a sense of the character, but then it was what the character went through to get their superpower.
Okay,
yeah, it's an interesting backstory.
got it.
But I haven't excuse me, I haven't came up with a name for the character though.
Hmm.
Interesting. Perhaps it'll just come out of the blue.
I like Nese. I think that's a great superhero name. I wouldn't change it. Maybe add something to it. Nese.
Yeah, I knowing Nese,
Silver.
he'll literally take your advice. He'll add something to it. It'll be NESE exclamation point.
Man of silver. No, man of silver. Man of something along that, like you would add that to it. In other words,
How
it'd be
about SSS, silver shapeshifter?
ooh, that's good. I like silver. Okay, I like that one.
All right, write it up there, Nano.
I love yours. I don't, I don't, when I think about stories about me, I don't know. I think about overcoming obstacles or facing
Yeah, same
things,
here.
or I don't ever think about a superpower because I don't have one. And maybe I just think about not quitting and I just keep facing things. And um, yeah, I don't
So
know.
here's a different question then. So if you were able to have a superpower, what
Mm,
would it be?
okay. Well, one thing I'd throw out there that I find intriguing is being able to traverse time and manage time and manipulate time.
Ooh, a Time Lord.
Yep. Yep. I probably would go for that because I'm so intrigued by it always. Um, and not mismanaging it, not misusing it, but being able to to know what's coming and prevent it. Like I love stuff like that, you know, like people that think they know what's coming and you try to prevent it. Or of course you make a bigger mess, but still or go on the past and stop it, or go on the past and just, you know, make it go a little bit to the left. Still going to hit. Still
Did you
gonna
ever see? Sorry.
Oh no, I've
Did
seen
you
all
ever
time stuff. Go ahead. Which one are you talking
did
about?
you ever see that Nicolas Cage one, 7 Seconds?
Yes. Yes. That was really good. Yeah.
That's what it made me think about that whole. But it's not so much time manipulation, but knowing
In fact, that's the
7
name- is
seconds
that
into the future.
Was that the name of the movie too? Knowing?
Or no, knowing was the other one about the extraterrestrial and the children.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
But I think now you got me doubting myself.
Yeah, I know.
I
No,
think it was called 7 Seconds.
yeah, I remember that movie. It was really good. And I thought that was pretty cool to be able to know something that's coming, you know, and it just kind of, you have 7 seconds to change it. That's it.
But we may kind of think of ourselves as ordinary, but we know what's coming. We've got a little bit of superpowers.
We do. Yeah, we do. Probably more than we know. I do think we are very powerful creatures, right? Our imagination.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I feel like our powers are purposely muddled because, I mean, we're capable of things.
Yeah.
The Bush Telegraph, all the psychokinesis, all these psychic things, all the intuition. People were born with heightened with extra. I mean, it's to make it seem like it's nonsense, it will never happen, it's completely fiction, muddy the water up enough so nobody believes in themselves and the spirit keeps coming down.
What was that TV series?
Which one?
The TV series about all of a sudden people started getting superpowers after the eclipse.
Oh yeah, it sounds
And
familiar.
it was like a story of like 12 different individuals going through their super change.
Yeah.
And they're finding each other, and it's all like a synchronistic coincidence of them all gathering together.
Yes. Yes.
Was that called Heroes?
Maybe.
I don't remember watching it. I almost did. I think you're right. It was about 10 years ago.
Something like that. No,
Yeah.
it was longer than that because I could see when it came out. So 14 plus. But Luna, what's your superpower?
I'm not sure.
She has to run across the room.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do. I'm having cat problems. Cat on keyboard. I had to appease their needs otherwise. And there's 2 of them, so that's why I keep popping in and popping out again. Superpower. My superpower, real life superpower, is survival.
Would be what?
Survival. That's what I have. My real life superpower is to be able to survive.
Ah, gotcha.
But if you had a choice in a superpower,
I don't know. That'd be a really long thing because they all got their drawbacks.
right?
Oh, yeah.
See, even the cat chimed in on that one.
Yeah.
I think she's
How
trying
about
to say
you, Jules?
Oh, my superpower?
Sorry, Luna.
Just being. I mean, I'm like Luna, I'd have to like sit and think on it because they all have their disadvantages as much as their advantages.
Yeah.
There's always that full spectrum. You gotta embrace both sides. You can't have it one way without experiencing it the other way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be huge responsibility to have that kind of thing. Something that even if you could manipulate time or you could change the past or the future and all that stuff, we're not God, and we know that those kinds of things have repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
And the universe is far more brilliant than I am. Like, that's one thing I've learned with age, that what I would have considered, we all have seen people do crap, right? And we think, okay, karma's going to kick your butt someday. And you think about what you would have doled out to that person. Back in the old days, I used to think about stuff like that. I don't anymore. But I couldn't even match up to what the universe dished out. I mean, it was perfect. It would come at the perfect time. It would roll out with the perfect characters. It was like this perfect thing. And it's like, man, I couldn't have done that in a million years. Not even close, And that's what was so amazing about the universe, is I couldn't even touch it. As the song goes, can't touch this.
Can't
touch this. Yeah, the universe is perfect, and the timing is always perfect, and the way it gets executed, it's like watching this brilliant movie. Like, oh my God, I wouldn't have thought of that. And the other part of it is I always feel bad for the people. By the time all that happens, you just have this, especially if they don't get it, they don't understand why all that crap happens to them.
I mean, but in those movies, there's also super villains too. Just like what's mirroring current times. There's super villain. And earlier, I think it was Luna who was mentioning superheroes that don't have any superpowers perceived through media. And it was Dick Tracy. He didn't have any specific powers at all, but he was ahead of his time back then with his smartwatch. And all he did was talk on his phone, check in with headquarters, and he would scour the news for the bad guys. No different than what we do today.
Yeah.
And I used to watch Dick Tracy because I was thinking the cartoons I used to watch was different. I picked different ones, but Dick Tracy was one of them. And growing up and having technology now, I'm sitting back and going, all right, how stupid do you think we are? When I was a kid, Dick Tracy had a watch, and that watch was better than your phone, and it was tinier, and you just put it on your wrist. So growing up now, I'm thinking, yep, I can see the trick. Where's the Dick Tracy watch? Who's got them? We haven't got them, obviously, but someone's got them.
Apple Watch.
Got an Apple Watch. And
Samsung.
Doesn't the Apple Watch, isn't it a kind of a phone? Is it a phone too?
Yep.
Yeah. They're like $600 or something, right?
A phone and a watch.
How old is Dick Tracy? We were little kids when.
Yeah.
They knew about it back then. That's what I'm saying.
So was Dick Tracy from the future? I don't know his origin.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like that whole thing of science fiction becoming science fact. However, in the argument of it, radio wave promulgation was known at the early 1900s. The only challenge at that time is they didn't have the technological advancement of computer chips. And so, this is why the old radios were enormous, because they were using tube technology. So the biggest challenge was, how do they decrease the size of the radio? And as the radio continued to advance technology, the radio turned into the walkie-talkie, and then the walkie-talkie eventually turned into a cell phone. But instead of using, the UHF, HF, and VHF, all these different variables or levels of frequency, they went straight to satellite transmission. And then from there, they set up the grid, and now we got all the towers, 5G. Yay.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, again, you wonder about the stories because you had Tesla, who actually was way ahead of the curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they kept shutting that guy down. If they had listened to him, we would have free energy. We wouldn't have gone down a whole lot of roads. Probably wouldn't have had the war, and we wouldn't have had the bomb and all this kind of junk. And
No, I mean, and that's where we have an advantage with the superpower of insight is we know that that power was available a long time ago, and they're gonna tear society down and hold off on it just so they can make it seem like, oh, we just got this. This is new technology for us, and finally, at last, we can. But they've had it all along.
yes, and they have more than that. I think the thing that frustrates me about this whole time zone where we are right this second is I feel like they're trying to throw us back to the caveman. You know what I mean? Like it's like everything is set up, so we're just going backwards, like step backwards. Whereas there's all these inventions, all this technology, good technology, that if we can get our hands on it and just start using it. And I'm thinking while they're rolling out this what's the word I want to use? This desperation and this, depression or whatever the hell they're rolling out. We need to grab a hold of the fact that we know a lot of things exist and we need to just start manifesting them. It's like, okay, well, if you want to live like that, you guys have a great time. We know better. We know we can run our cars on water. We know that we don't have to go through you for electricity. We know we don't have to eat your crappy cricket food. In fact, we're not going to. As they roll out this whole going backwards crap, and watching, and Jules and I were talking about Putin's speech where he said, in spite of all their best efforts with the sanctions, we're going to be okay. And I want us to be able to say that, us here in America or wherever you are, in spite of their best efforts of trying to take us back to the cave days, we're not going. We're going this way because we know
Well, it does.
stuff.
It in agreement with you. It seems, from my perspective, that they are setting up for the proverbial pulling the rug from under our feet.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And in my world experience, I got a new crock pot. And had I known in advance the new crock pot was nothing but digital touch, I would have said no because, I just wanted a simple dial crock pot that had low, high, and medium on it. But now all the crock pots have digital displays and touch buttons. So this new push of the computer processing or the computer within all of these new products, it
Right.
wouldn't take much for an EMF to fry everything out.
Right.
And then what do? When none of your appliances work because they have computer chips in them,
Yeah, I might
No
including
toast.
your cars.
You gotta hang on to the old stuff.
You always keep an old toaster that would EMF with an electric toaster. It'd have no toast, no cinnamon toast, no peanut butter toast.
Right.
That's the way they designed it, isn't it?
Or you just turn your oven on and put cinnamon and butter on a bunch of bread and toast it.
Yeah.
That's what I
But
don't
most ovens,
Oven toast is the best toast.
It is. I like oven toast.
Oven toast is the
But you're
best.
right. They say if you're connected to the Internet of Things, they'll just turn it all off. But then again, that's where we have to make sure that we can take care of ourselves with what we need if they decide to play that
Yeah,
game.
because the Internet of Things, they're banking on us to become part of the Internet of Things.
Exactly. Yes. Or freak out if we can't have our whatever, right? It's like, oh my God, the world's over. It's like, no, it's not. We're going to be okay. And like I said, listening to what Putin had to say today, I thought, I want that. The way he said it was really calm. You know, he was talking to his folks. He gave a like 4-hour speech. And I just thought, I want that. I want to be calm. It's just like, yeah, okay, well, whatever. You guys do your thing and we're going to do ours. Thank you. No. Keep going.
Well, this goes back to the superpower, the superhero ideology, where a challenge arises and we need to find, as I say, within love, positivity, without fear, negativity, can we find the strength to overcome these challenges?
Yeah.
And that's the major individual experiences we go through, that we have something comes before our path and we need to find the courage or the assistance to go through or continue on or overcome or bury or tunnel under, go to the left, go to the right, stand up, sit down, fight, fight, fight.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think we'll be doing all of the above. I think you know, like Catherine Austin Fitz says, go find your tribe, right? Go find the people that you can talk to, and then start to build your community through the people that you can relate to, that you can talk to, that hear you. And I agree with you. Everything you said, they say, I think they're going to do all of it, all of the above. And I think they're going to pull out every stopper. They already are.
Yeah, they're desperately they're trying. I mean, it's midterms are coming up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and then after that, when gas prices go up sky high.
Yep. And food and everything else. I think after this right in the middle of Christmas, I think they're going to just like.
Well, you guys do know about December 13th. They're calling it the C Day, the Cash Day. That's when central based digital currency.
Is that when they're going to do it?
Is going to be coming about.
Okay.
And that's gonna tie into
the digital
ID and universal basic income, digital surveillance. It's all coming, and all you got to do is look at World Economic Forum on their website. They've been putting their plans out forever and a day. I mean, and how like arrogant do you have to be to make yourself a group and control everybody
and take over the entire planet?
Yeah, that's the supervillain. I mean, you're against the entire world.
Yeah. Hang on a minute. Something doesn't make sense. So their plan is to get us hooked on the technology, and then a magnetic wave is going to knock it all out.
Yeah.
Right.
But if they put us on universal pay and all that, right, which from my end is really good because it's more money than what I get in a normal day, right? And then the magnetic force knocks all the power out. It's still going to put us back to ordinary living, which is light a fire, cook your food, go and get the water. What they've been doing for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years. It doesn't not make sense. It doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? But it's like going around the wrong way to get in the door.
True. I mean, but as long as there's a profit to be made off of it, they're gonna run it to the ground as long as they can.
I forgot about the money factor. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you look at it strategically, you know, strategically to continue getting more power and maintaining power, you know, this is what the game has changed, the players have changed, but it's still on the same game board, and that's usually a black and white checkered board.
Yeah.
And the powers that should not be have, you know, I suspect that they've been in power for over 5,000 years. And I do still have faith in the human beings to find that collective consciousness. But it is just like the superhero adventure. It is the David and Goliath story.
Mhm.
And we are in a fight, as my ancestors, the Anishinaabe, claim, were mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And on all fronts, the powers that should not be are battling against us. And this is where I humbly request people to act local and think global. Go to your community, go to your local government. And if I may blow my own horn, currently I am in the mayoral candidacy and doing debates with the current appointed mayor. It's only between me and her, and I am not proclaiming the label politician. And I think they don't know how to handle me because of the things that I'm sharing at these forms of candidacy. So do it.
They probably are in shock to have like an honest opinion who's somebody that's not one side of the beast or the other.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you have two sides, but it's still going to the same creature, entity, demon, whatever we refer to it as.
Oh yeah, and the powers that should not be, they do not play nice.
No.
Because from some of the candidate forms, they've taken sound bites from me without playing the entirety of the statement to make me look bad right off the get-go.
Oh yeah. They'll I mean, I was the treasurer for somebody who ran was a candidate in Austin, Texas, and she was against the toll roads, and that was a big thing from Mr. Goodhair, Governor Perry. And she was making progress, and they started attacking her. They killed her car, right? They just EMP'd it. They went into her mail. They started making her look super bad. Like you said, they twisted everything she said. And she was such a good speaker. She was really good. She was very precise and concise. And she did such a great job. And they just hounded her. They hounded her. And it was ugly. It was so ugly. I had no idea that was going on at that level. I mean, I think she was just going for counselor or councilman or councilwoman or something, I was like, oh my God, this is so ugly to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It was awful. And of course she lost. So, and then the way they hated Ron Paul, and because I volunteered to be one of his, which I can't even remember it anymore, but, we spent the day doing that and his party hated him. It was the Republican breakout session. And and half of the room was for the candidate they had, and the other one was for Ron Paul. And they detested, it was like watching the Trump scene, and they detested Ron Paul so much. And we were all supporting Ron Paul, and we were delegates. We wasn't the one that goes to the big meeting, but we were the smaller delegates. And I have never felt such hatred in a room. Just absolute. And all we did was represent Ron Paul. And I think, well, first of all, he's part of your party. He's echoing your crap. Why are you hating on this guy? Because he wasn't going to play the game. He wouldn't have played the game. And the vitriol. These people.
Yeah. It's getting nasty.
And I think that's why I don't want to put myself through that. I mean, they say I really respect you for getting out there and doing it.
As do I.
That facing up to that hate, like, oh my gosh.
Well, it's part of me is the veteran aspect. I swore an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Yeah.
And because of that oath and because of my service in the military, I'm all crippled up and blind and confined to a wheelchair, and so this system has chewed me up and
Yeah.
spit me out, and to me it's like, well, if you're going to teach me to be what they call a warrior, a fighter, then why would I just stop?
Yeah.
And so it's that whole thing of, part of it is, what am I teaching my children by not doing something about it? If I'm going to sit here and complain about the system, then I need to do something about it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's, it is what it was. And it's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it.
Well, can I ask you a question about it? Do you feel that some of the people that go or attend or are around you respect you for what you gave the country? Do you feel like you get respected for that?
Well, even within myself, I have challenges because when I joined the military at that young, naive age of 17, I thought I was doing the right thing. And it was literally within 4 weeks of being in the military where I'm just questioning what am I getting myself into? But I did it. I got into it. So, okay, I'm going to do what I enlisted to do. Although I was called a nonconformist and I did what I was told to do, but I always questioned, what am I doing? And that's not good for the military because the military needs, for them to be effective, they need autonomous drones,
Yeah. Yeah. They
you know,
cons.
so when it comes to other veterans, we have like a kinship to what we've gone through. And because of my advocacy with veterans' rights, the one thing that I've noticed time and time again, more times than not, when military personnel would re up or stay in the military, it was more to be part of the camaraderie and protecting your fellow veterans
Yeah.
than it was about the structure above you. Because I think we all realized right away that we were just basically cannon fodder. And that's the sad truth of it.
Yeah.
Especially now being disabled and going through what I've gone through, where the system claimed that they're going to take care of me in the event of something happening because of my service.
Right.
And that obligation is not being met. And so it's the my own ego or hubris. There's a individual that's in the public eye, and he's proclaimed it publicly a few times that I am one of his heroes.
Well,
And one
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but you were at a good point. But playing timekeeper, it's like 9:33 your time. And I know
ooh,
you had mentioned that you had previous engagements, but speaking on leaving on heroes, was going to segue into my thoughts overall of what the whole superhero means to me. And they say you are a hero. Heroes don't always have capes. They overcome disadvantage situation and they perceive with a positive attitude and go forth the best they can. They inspire, and that's why you are one of my heroes.
Oh,
I like
well,
that.
I'm the one thing that I look at myself is that if somebody can look at me and see instantly that I must be going through challenges and struggles, and yet I continue to persevere and move forward. And if somebody can look at that situation and reflect on themselves, then may I be a reflection of that motivation, because that is the biggest key to all of it. To overcome the challenge has to start with words and then actions. And so I I try to keep the integrity of the words that I proclaim, because if you take everything away from us, that's pretty much all we have left is our body and our words. And so we're Wookie Foot, one of my favorite bands. They proclaim, "We may not have it all together, but together we can have it all." And
Brilliant.
this is something that I truly believe in, and I'm going to jump off, and I look at you as a hero, Nano, because when you would show up with Kev Baker and you would share your experiences and the knowledge of stuff that you've done, that's being a hero. Luna, with you and what you've shared with your talents and your gifts, and Jules, the same with you. You also are putting yourself out there for the public scrutiny in the efforts of trying to assist others in finding positivity. So I look at all of you entities, all of you citizens, as
Oh, I
heroes
hate
too.
that word.
And
I hate being referred to as a citizen. It's so militant.
I know I'm not a fan of it either. But it's the safest word to use nowadays.
Every time I hear that word, I remember Citizen Kane.
Yep.
I'm hanging on to some of the words that they want us to stop using, and I'm like, you guys, I mean, we heard at where I'm working right now to stop using that, and I thought, no, I'm not going to. And I'll tell you, everyone, I'm listening for it. I'm listening to all the shows. I'm listening to people use it. I hear it a lot. That it doesn't. It's harmless. It's just harmless. And you're right. There's not lots of stuff we can use because it is offensive, and I can understand that. And the stuff that I really feel like, okay, that's being insensitive, or I could really make an effort to get rid of that. And that makes sense to me. But some things, it's like, no, I'm keeping it.
It's
It's
this
like,
is my word. You can have that one.
well, I mean, you can only be pushed in a corner so far. And the problem is I can't remember. I don't remember stuff, which is sad. And so sometimes I don't remember. And I was like, okay, am I supposed to say that or not supposed to say that? How do I say that? And I start tripping over my words. And I actually said something in a meeting about 2 months ago, and the lady I was meeting with, I love her. I love her. She goes, go ahead and say it. It's okay. Don't trip it over. Don't trip. And then she used it. And I'm like, I love you. I love you. I
Well,
love
I love you all, and
Yes.
I have to jump off. And
Okay.
it's been a pleasure, Nano. You guys all have a beautiful weekend, a wonderful Halloween. Share the giggles, and we may not have it all together, but together we'll have it all.
And
Toodles.
you are
Yeah, dude. Have
you're
a
a
happy
hero
Halloween.
for hanging in there and doing that political stuff. God bless you. Whew. Anybody that can traverse
I
that.
know.
Oh, it's so, to me, it's so dark and negative. And I think each of us can pick something that others will look and go, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. Right. So that the right people are doing the right things. And
Yeah.
then, so it's all good. It's all good, because I showed up to enough stuff and other people didn't. And so it worked out great. I
Yeah,
learned
but
a lot
getting back on this topic, I
of heroes.
actually, over the past couple of years, definitely things have shifted for me as far as what I perceive superheroes to be. I mean, they used to be comic books and everything, but when an actual tragedy hits on a mass scale, that's when you reevaluate things and you realize that it's the firefighters, it's the doctors, it's
Right.
the frontline people, those service people that have become the heroes.
Like
And,
even the police
and
officers.
speaking of heroes and doing things of heroic nature,
Right.
um, Dr. Kevin McCarran.
Yes.
He's out there doing miraculous work. Twitter, and all of his science, he's doing things, and it's all public funded because it's honest science with a microscope and cameras, so you can see him literally doing work and not just taking somebody's word for it. Boots on the ground science, and his analysis of events and things have how they have unfolded. He's been anywhere from 6 to 9 months ahead of the curve.
Yeah, he's pretty brilliant. I agree with you.
He's the only one of his kind doing this stuff, and he's kind of a superhero trying to save humanity,
Yes. Yes.
trying to warn us. Just like I don't know what team Elon's on, but he did something with Twitter once was heroic. I mean, it's exposing it for the corruption that was within it. I mean, hopefully it becomes the way that he envisions it, where it is a free, a public hall.
Right.
And if it is just and good and there's no bias, then I might one day find myself on Twitter.
Well, I have a Twitter account. I've had it since whenever the first 6 months they created it, because I was in the tech, and I never post anything. I use it for emergencies. Twitter is so great for emergencies. Like if that first 20 to 24 to 48 hours of a fire or, whatever, the people around you post and send pictures. I'm down the street from you and look at this and check that out. And it really works great for that. And that's what I use it for, because we don't have a local news. I don't have a TV and I don't listen to local news. So I use Twitter. And there's usually, when we went through that fire scare, I went right to Twitter and it was up to date the first 24 to 48 hours. If there's something going on in the world, I need to check in on it, I go to Twitter. It's brilliant.
I mean, and the way technology is, it has its benefits and it has its disadvantages as well. But I guess one of the
everybody starts chit-chatting and whining, and it's like okay, we're done with that. Thank you though. Thank you. You helped me.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's going to be interesting to see what Elon. I'm not holding my breath for the Musketeer. I'm not a big fan of Elon's. I'm sorry.
I'm not either.
He's I'll just leave it at that. That's a nice thing to say. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, I see both sides. He's
got he's every once in a while, it's like a broken clock. He's right. He does something. It's like, oh, that was good. Thank you, Elon. Gracias. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I agree. So if going back to the hero thing too, when I think about the heroes that I love the most, and I think recently it's just what we were talking about, the Marvel heroes and stuff like that. I like them to be good people. I don't mind if they're conflicted, like the Batman or, some of these other heroes. In fact, that makes it kind of interesting. But I don't like twisted, because that's not a hero to me. That's just somebody who's misusing something that should be used for good. Mm-hmm. I'm not focusing on the hero thing. I'm always interested in where they take it. How do they view the responsibility of it? Right? It was that saying, with great power comes great responsibility. That's something they say in Spider-Man a lot. And it was good to see Spider-Man No Way Home. I don't know if you happen to see that movie. 3 of the three of the actors that played Spider-Man all end up being around each other because they're dealing with the multiverse. And that's where Doctor Strange comes in. And so there's all this multiverse stuff. And so three of them face each other. And I think that would be fascinating if they did it with Batman. If they took Michael Keaton, of course, Val Kilmer's not what he was, he's kind of dealing with some stuff, but take some of these past people and they all end up in this multiverse and their version of Batman and how they played him and how, it was really interesting.
I think one of the funniest things that I stumbled across when I was doing a little bit of looking into superheroes and comics and everything, there was an actual comic called Fat Man.
Huh.
Really?
Yep.
Hey, I thought of something. What happens when the superhero grows old unless their superpower is to stay useful, like it keeps them immortal somehow? Otherwise, what happens to superheroes when they grow old?
Well, that SpongeBob showed you that there was Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. They were at the old folks' home, and they would still, when the call would come in, they would still get out and they would go fight crime, and then go back to the nursing home, the old folks' home.
Well, part of the superheroes things is you don't age as fast as everybody else, right? They always seem to add that into the superpowers, like Superman, and Batman has never aged. I mean, now with Patterson playing it, I mean, he's a fairly young guy, right? He's still in his 30s, I think.
I think so.
They don't age. I was surprised they killed off 007 in the last James Bond movie. Did you happen to catch that?
It wasn't 007 a female in the last one?
They killed him in the last one, yeah. The Craig, what's his face, Craig? Daniel Craig. And they're going to come out with a female 007.
Yeah,
there was a female 007 in the movie, and I'm thinking, can you just leave James as James, please?
Yeah,
some things I don't think translate into being a girl or a female. And I'd say James Bond was one of them.
Yeah, James Bond was always James Bond, right? Even I remember as a kid, James Bond was James Bond.
I mean, it's about being a guy. What's wrong with that?
It's like Mighty Mouse being not being a mouse anymore.
Right. Hey.
Or Catwoman not being a cat anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what the scene feels like, yeah.
Yes. No, I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just right, eh?
And I just, like I said, I haven't enjoyed necessarily female stepping into these roles.
Well, right? I like, it depends what role it is. Like, I'm all for warrior women and superhero women, but
apparently so am I.
When there's an iconic role, it's a storyline, it's a character, it's an iconic role, it's something that do you remember, like we were saying earlier, this character and that character from the early days? It's like making Abraham Lincoln green and now he's an alien or something. Do you know what I mean? It's just not right. It just doesn't fit the scenario. You might as well throw everything out because it has no meaning anymore as far as pretend characters go.
I mean, as far as the pretend characters, because we're coming up on like 2 hours, but pretend characters and a land of turmoil cried out for a hero. Right. I mean, the whole my liking of Xena came from Luna. I had never seen an episode until she told me, check this show out. So I did. And from then it was nothing but learning things of the past, learning of history, learning how to don on spiritual armor, overcome things, and then realizing that we really do need somebody like Xena out there now. Somebody to take down these oligarchs. She wouldn't have it. I mean, somebody who valued acquaintances and friends, who realized her path wasn't the best path for her to take, went back, corrected her wrongs, walked through life the best she could, and took down the bad guys helping out people. That's that's what I love about Xena, and we do need a hero like that. And if there is a song I would play right now, it would be "We Don't Need Another Hero. We Know
Yeah.
What We Want." It's right behind the Thunderdome.
Yeah, cool.
But I think that it's important we do this because they kill the heroes, right? Look at all the heroes they've killed, Robert Kennedy and JFK and all that stuff, and some of the recent ones, some of the reporters and the doctors that we've talked about this the last show, right? The organic doctors and who are the other big groups? The immunologists, all of them are gone. So I think everyday people, all walks of life, the fact that we're just a big group of people going, no thanks, no thanks, and that is heroic. And that's why that video that we talked about before the show was so powerful.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't thought about it in the way that he said it, that you went up against your family, your friends, you lost your jobs, you lost your place in society, you were beaten up, you were humiliated, you were, blah, 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 blah. And you think about it, well, I thought about it just saying I didn't want that shot. To me, that was more important. I didn't want the jab. But when you think about it, yeah, we took a hit. We took a lot of hits for that, right? And we felt like for good reason. So that was very interesting.
Yep. Super Mom, you got any closing thoughts? Any final words? Any words of wisdom?
Yeah, be your own superhero, rescue yourself, and then once you've done that, go out and rescue other people, help them rescue themselves, and be a superhero that way. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a mum or dad, not a mum or a dad, whether you're old or young. It doesn't matter. You are capable of doing kindnesses, and I think that's a really good power to have.
Yeah, so about a year ago, I remember having that conversation with Mark Singer, and I asked him, what would Mike Donovan think of today's world? What kind of advice could he give? And he said, rescue yourself. And I pondered on that for the longest time, never quite kind of understood what he meant by it. But after having this conversation and hearing you say that, I get it.
Yeah. That I think that's what it comes down to. I think I think that's what's made this whole thing, walking through this, very interesting and odd at the same time. Difficult, odd, interesting, crazy, because it's up to us to make up our own mind what that looks like. What does a hero look like to us, and be it.
And remember, like we've said all night, that every superhero we've talked about have their own private battles.
Yes.
Right? So when you're having your own private battle, remember that. You're still a superhero. You still can rescue yourself, and you can still help other people rescue themselves.
Yes.
Once you've done that.
Super Mom, aka Luna, you're one of my superheroes, and Nanogirl is one of my heroes as well.
Hey, you are all my heroes. And when you deal with your own junk, your own crap, that's what makes you powerful. You're not just letting it be an elephant in the room. You're dealing. You don't have.
And you're not being a monkey at the zoo and flinging it on somebody else either.
That's right, exactly. Or a flying monkey. You're not being one of who's flying monkeys.
Yeah, that's true.
Name a person. It doesn't matter. You're not one of their flying monkeys. That's exactly correct. Yeah. I think it takes a lot of courage to deal with your junk every day and tame the beast.
Yeah.
And I recommend, how they talk about power dressing, right? It doesn't matter what kind of clothes make you feel powerful. even if you have to dress up in a actual superhero outfit like kids do, right? They
Right.
put on their superhero outfit and they run around the house and they actually feel they are superheroes at the time. They're so full of light and happiness. God, that'll knock anyone over. Yeah, do that. Dress up, whatever you like dressing up in that makes you feel strong and powerful that you can rescue yourself and rescue others. Do it. Because in this day and age, you can wear anything. Like I said in the beginning, you go out in the street, everyone's wearing all sorts of things. So yeah.
Yeah, it's designed that way. They want anybody to wear anything.
Yeah, I love it.
They in the future there will be no male, there will be no female. There will be one.
Right.
Oh, well, I'm a believer in individuality, and that's what I love at the moment. I don't recommend everything being the same. It'd be so horrible. Well, it'd be like watching the same movie over and over again. Be individual, because some people out there they wear clothes to express who they are. Some of them are like, wow,
Exactly. But
wow, yeah. So
that's the beauty of snowflakes is the individuality.
Be
Right.
true to yourself. Wear your own superhero clothes, whatever they may be. They might be a pair of thongs, a pair of jeans with holes in them, and your favourite t-shirt. But you feel powerful in that. Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's what we need.
I think we got there.
Future, yeah. What is it? Superpowers and superheroes unite. Actually, that was one that I loved because I had so many kids and I watched so many cartoons and that. What were they called?
The Wonder Twins?
No, it was about 5 kids. I'll say it and you'll know what it is. It says Earth, Fire, Wind, and Heart. And they called up the superpower of the Earth. Who was it?
I can't remember.
Oh, what was it called? It was about 5 kids, and they found gave
It
them
was
the
one of those from it was one of those from the early 90s, one of those push for the green cartoons.
Yeah. And the kids would unite together, and this being would come out of the mother and go and rescue whatever.
Oh, that's the one that Al Gore tried to keep getting out. I'll think of it eventually.
Yeah, I just liked it because it was the elements, and it's true. You know, some people like water, some people like air. Oh, you know, that's why.
Captain Planet.
Yeah, that's it, Captain Planet. Yeah, yep, Captain Planet.
I think he's done enough damage with his other dumb book. Oh no, it was his movie, right? Wasn't it his documentary or something? I did see it. That was back in my, I didn't know better days.
Rescue the animals. That's why the only reason I liked it was rescuing animals and saving trees and cleaning the water. Yeah. The fact that you have to do that's the bad thing. But that's where the evil characters come in. But like I said, it's been blurred now. That's why you be careful. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say. Be careful of what superheroes you watch on TV and that now, because the lines are blurred and you don't want to program yourself the wrong way.
Right.
Yeah. It's good advice.
Yep.
Yeah, so it looks like I think Joe might be still kicking about with us. Sorry, Joe, I kind of got lost in conversation, lost track of chat. But Joe, Polly, Connie, Tessa, Ron, anybody that's going to be watching this in the future, thanks for taking the time to spend a little bit of time with us.
Yep.
Yep.
Have a wonderful Halloween and a great weekend.
Yeah, and I definitely set out to learn some things about superheroes, and I did. And I like that a lot of I appreciate that you guys have the ability to just let your mind be like this and then let it get stretched and come back, and yeah, it's amazing. I mean, that's why I can't thank you guys enough for coming and yarning with me, because you guys really are heroes to me. Modern day people that I look up to, that just to get through this journey of life.
What's that song?
It's good to have lights along the way to guide you on your journey.
We can be heroes just for one day. Remember that song?
Yes, that song. We can be a hero for just one day. I love that. It's in that movie, The Replacements.
Yeah,
Have you seen that with Keanu Reeves?
vintage David Bowie.
I love that movie. It's about all these guys that get to play football, and they're not famous, but they can play football, and they actually win. And get to be a hero for just one
That's
day.
one. Yeah. Well, thanks, Jules. Thanks, Sharon.
Yeah, well, thank you. This was
Yeah.
great.
So yeah, it's been a blast. Until next time, everyone. Have an awesome day and know that you're loved.
Have a good time. Yellow.
Yalu.
Later.